When you're standing up close to a train track, you see two very distinct, very separate rails. They're bound together by the ties, but they are separate, distinct rails. But as you look off in the distance, those rails come together and it eventually appears as one. There is a secret to being an employer that's hidden within that train track. Let's talk about that.
This is The Rare Advisor, proud to be a part of the Advisor Advancement Network and home of a business model supercharged by recurring and repeatable events. Your host is Mike Walters, CEO of USA Financial. He is an investment advisor representative of and securities are offered through USA Financial Securities, member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor.
Hey, based on a previous video, it really warrants us spending a little extra time talking about you as the owner of your practice, you as an entrepreneur, and what that means in terms of you being a buyer as well as being a seller in relationship with employment, with employing your staff and your team. And you may recall, if you've seen the previous video, there was a quick little graphic that I showed. Here it is again, where it's really a 4-quadrant approach to the concept that an employer and an employee interact back and forth as both buyers and sellers, depending on the perspective of the equation. So when unemployment is high and employees or people are looking for jobs, then in many ways the employer is the buyer. Again, we get into supply and demand issues. It makes sense. The employer is the buyer because what you're doing is you're buying time, energy, and expertise from the people who are going to work on your team, who are going to work for your entity. And so you are physically buying those services from the employee. And what they're selling is, again, their time, energy, and expertise. But then oftentimes it kind of goes the other direction as well, where the employer is really the seller. They're trying to sell employees, where an employee has different choices of where they might want to go work. And so now you're trying to sell them on the benefits of working for you rather than someone else. The culture, the structure, the comp, the benefit package, all of the other niceties that go along with whatever your package looks like in terms of being an employer. And then, you see this kind of ebb and flow. And in large corporate America, and especially at the more rudimentary job levels, you'll see this pendulum swing pretty dramatically. And so what I would simply encourage you to do is understand that these quadrants exist. But more importantly, as a business owner, as the entrepreneur, the financial advisor running a practice and being reliant upon having a high quality team, that you should be considering yourself both buyer and seller at the same time. Meaning that you are in fact buying these services from the people who work for you, and that's really important, and you do need to monitor that, and you need to lead and manage accordingly. But at the same time, you are selling the merits of being part of your practice. You cannot ever stop building that culture, building that overall package, if you will. So think just like how you would market yourself to your clients, how you would want to also market yourself to your employees. And as an employee, I will talk to you for a moment as well, that you should think the same way. You are both buyer and seller at the same time. What is it you're tying into? What are you buying, if you will, by going to work for that particular firm or practice? What are the benefits to you for growth, for culture, for an environment that you're going to spend a lot of time on, whether you're doing it remote with that team or whether you're physically there with that team, or more likely some kind of a hybrid approach these days where you're spending time both digitally and face-to-face with your team. What is it that you're physically buying there? And then what are you doing to improve yourself so that you have a better product to sell? So that employer wants to spend more money on your services, on your effort, on your intentions, on your skill set, on your energy. So certain people are obviously worth more than others in an entity, in an organization. That's because they understand what they're selling and they've built a better product to sell. So it really is a two-way street. And under the best environment, I believe that employers are both buyer and seller at the same time, and employees are both buyer and seller at the same time. Because now if we can move that intention forward in a vested interest, it's like a train track, right? They're running in parallel, and the farther out they get, the more they look like one. because now it's that entity, it's that team, it's that culture. So if I'm standing close up, I see the two entities, but when I look off in the distance, that track just goes together and it eventually looks like one. That's what I'm shooting for. I want these two tracks over a long horizon to look like one.
This information is for licensed financial professionals only and is not intended for use in soliciting sales from the public. The views expressed represent the opinions of the presenter or their featured guest, not necessarily those of USA Financial or its affiliated subsidiaries. Industry references are generic and not intended to represent actions or beliefs of any individual or entity. Content is only presented to illustrate general principles, beliefs, or ideas and should not be construed as legal or regulatory advice. Trademark and copyright protected. USA Financial and Affiliates.